That's what I'll do.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So, Amy, please tell me about yourself. Tell me about so many hats in the marketing that you have worn,
Well, before
and
we do
specific.
that, I'd like to know more about you and what your project is and why you reached out.
So basically, I'm actually working on a report. It's based on marketing automation for B2B, and it specifically focuses on Marketo. I'm
Okay.
actually a part of actually very dynamic Marketo crew. They're actually amazing people. And we also provide digital marketing services to, decision makers to all those, uh, not just in digital marketing. We actually have some of the top clients in the USA and from the Silicon Valley Bank. So enough about that. This project is basically around, creating an industry benchmark report.
Okay.
And the idea is basically to find the gaps in marketing automation and so that it can be of value for every decision maker. So that if you're a decision maker and you compare your current standing, you can compare your current standing against the industry benchmarks by reading that report. It will give you an idea of where you actually are and where to move forward from there. Uh, we have the insights. I've been collecting active insights from many people. I had the pleasure of speaking to some of the amazing people at Adobe itself. I had the pleasure to speaking to some people from the Accenture, and there have been so many amazing people, so many founders, so many VPs. All of them actually, contributed the insights. So many amazing people like you. So I actually have all of that, and obviously everybody who participated, they will receive a completed report when it's
Wonderful.
finished.
Yeah. Great. What part of the world are you in?
I'm sorry, my location.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in Pakistan. I live in
Oh,
Pakistan.
okay. Great. Great. So it's late for you right now.
Yeah, it's basically 9 p.m. for me.
And it's morning here. Okay. Okay, sure.
All right.
So how can I help?
So, by being you, honestly, just don't hold back. I'd love for you each and every your insight is actually very valuable to me. So please tell me about your role, all the marketing hats that you wear, and your specific specialization within MarTech.
Sure. I've been in marketing. Well, I started my career as a web developer um in the 90s, which is probably around when you were born. And I when web became a marketing discipline because it was in IT originally. Think about now how nobody knows what to do with AI. When web came out, they also didn't know what to do with it. So it was because it had code, it was usually in IT departments. Um, Not even in dev departments, but in IT. That then, somewhere around 25 years ago, I'd say they started realizing that this is actually a marketing function, that the whole point of web is marketing. And web got uh, kind of reorganized into marketing rather globally in, I would say, the 2000 to 2005 timeframe. So I started out technical, right? Which is not where most marketers who come into marketing start from. Most marketing ops people, though, it's a lot more common. So I was at a startup in the early 2000s and in the marketing department and running their web. And I just started picking up more and more marketing tasks because that's what you do in a startup. Startups, everybody has to wear a lot of hats. Um, That's about the time marketing automation came around. This was probably by then, this is probably around 2007. Um, so my company needed something to manage our marketing automation. And at that point, it was mostly just, email marketing. And we went with an inexpensive product called Loop Fuse, which was garbage. At one time, it sent a test message to our entire list. We had those kinds of problems. And so we ended the contract and we opened a new contract with a tiny little company called Marketo. I think you've probably heard of them. And I worked with their first sales guy. He's still a dear friend. Um, And that's the first time I put Marketo in. It was, we continued with email marketing, and we also started piloting lead scoring, which was a kind of a brand new idea back then. We also had HubSpot, but HubSpot was mostly doing blog tools at that point. So HubSpot was running our blog, and we had it integrated with Marketo, and HubSpot was not trying to be much of a marketing automation player yet. The other big marketing automation player, the two in the world at that point, were Marketo and Eloqua. So I kind of started to learn Marketo and its features as it added features, and that's kind of a great way to learn something. um, and it was a small company still, and I kind of knew a lot, quite a good number of the team over there. My next company, they had Eloqua. Well, they wanted me to put in a marketing automation company. So now we're talking about 2010. They wanted a marketing automation tool. I wanted Marketo. The CEO knew people over at Eloqua. This was before Eloqua was Oracle. So we put in Eloqua. And so I got to know Eloqua really well. And what I found at the time was Eloqua was an extremely powerful tool, but the amount of steps to do things it was very complicated. And so if you were a technical marketer, it was fine and again, incredibly powerful. But I couldn't take this tool and go to a junior marketer who, say, maybe was 2 or 3 years out of school and just learning and say, go run an email campaign, because it was just far too complicated. So after about a year, we stripped that out and moved to Marketo. And that was a lot easier to use. So I've always been a Marketo over Eloqua fan. Um, Throughout the years, I have been in companies that have used all three. I know Marketo and Visible inside and out. I could probably teach classes. I love the tool. I think Adobe's has made some weird choices, but it's still a good tool. Not too many people use Eloqua since Oracle bought it. Although I worked at Oracle and we obviously used Eloqua. Um, in the past year, I have switched gears and out of being in a tech, so I've had digital marketing roles, I've had marketing operations roles, I've led marketing operations teams. I led a marketing operation team that was based out of India when I worked for Oracle. In the past year, I have kind of hung up my hat and stopped doing corporate and gone into consulting. The last company I was at was called Marqeta, which is not the same as Marketo. They are a public fintech, and I owned their Marketo instance. I built out lead scoring. They had it, but it was not being used right. And so I built out proper lead scoring. I built out, you know, lead lifecycle processes. I got Visible installed, which is probably something that could do a lot of things, but Adobe has, if they throw it in for free, and they've kind of stopped supporting it, so it's fairly difficult to use, and I haven't seen much development on it in a while. But I've gone into consulting. Now, right now, I don't have any clients that are using Marketo. I have clients, all my clients are using HubSpot. And so I'm managing their HubSpot instances, and I'd much rather have a Salesforce and Marketo stack than a straight HubSpot stack. But I'll use what the clients are using. I'm less in the marketing ops capacity lately. I'm doing more strategy. I am doing some marketing ops for a startup that I help out as their fractional VP of marketing. I certainly advise on how to use it. I have another client, which is a Visa. I obviously don't do their marketing operations. They have an entire discipline and organization for that. It's a big enterprise company. So yeah, that's my story.
I was actually right about you. Quite an amazing journey, And I have the honor to speaking to the two brothers of you who have actually worked directly with marketer. I mean, it's amazing. So, Amy, you said that you are actually, very skilled with marketer and visible. What, how, I mean, do you, in what ways is Marketo and Visible better than the other platforms? What are its strengths and how can we utilize it to maximize, our revenue, our creating a proper pipelines?
Sure.
Please let me.
So let's separate Marketo and Visible, because even though they're Adobe tools and they get thrown into the same package and they work together, they do different things. I find Marketo is far better suited to doing lead scoring properly. Um, I tend to think it's more intuitive. I will tell you that in the last year, HubSpot has made big strides in closing the gap. I still don't like their lead scoring model, but I think they're perfectly fine as long as you have them integrated in with Salesforce in terms of doing marketing automation. I like Marketo's, I just like Marketo's UX better, and that could just be biased because I'm more used to it at this point. I have been very frustrated to the point of ripping HubSpot out in the past, but I do think I think they've come a long way. Um, I haven't used Eloqua in a long time because not too many people use them since Oracle took over. Um, and I don't really think that they're competitive anymore, other than maybe very large enterprises that are all Oracle shops, just for the reasons I stated earlier, which is that they're complicated to use. You need a mid-market business or an SMB is not gonna, or even a small enterprise is not gonna want to deal with Eloqua. You need a marketing ops team, a dedicated marketing ops team, and a lot of companies just aren't gonna have those resources. Like a few people that run it. In terms of Visible, I was at a startup that was trying to do what Visible does, and it was a little before its time. That was probably around 2015 or so. I think there's a huge need. I mean, somebody could really close this gap. There's a huge need for multi-touch attribution and easily looking at the entire impact of your entire marketing spend and understanding the full ROI. And Visible's trying to do that, but it's another one that's just a pain in the ass to use. It's really difficult to get configured. And it only works well if you have Salesforce configured a certain way. And like anything, it's only as good as your data is. And most companies have data problems. I think somebody who wanted to come in and really solve for that understanding of the whole story could probably really get somewhere now, because marketers really understand that they're not measuring the full impact of their work. Like, people do first touch attribution, they do last touch attribution, and there's a big blind spot of like, anything that's a mid funnel touch tends to not get credit. So you might know that, for instance, you had 500 people go to your webinar, but it's not showing up as lead gen because it's all middle of the funnel, and so you're not giving it credit. But that's a very different problem than MOPS tools are trying to solve. For a while, Marketo had their own package. I think it was called Revenue Explorer or something like that was trying to do that. And then they dumped it and bought Visible, but then Adobe just didn't really put any more investment into that.
Amy, so you actually touched on one of the most amazing topics I've been researching so far, the multi-touch attribution and its impact on ROI. I followed RCM and I realized nobody uses that anymore. So the journey has been from RCM to multi-touch attribution. That being said, I'd love to get your thoughts on multi-touch attribution, how to cover the blind spots, and how direct impacts ROI.
You, well, so you want to know more about that? Is that what you were saying? The connection's not so great. Yeah, well, it's hard, right? You really, you need a tool that can track each of these touches. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be a certain amount of dark funnel. So let's start by talking about the dark funnel. Pretend like you're going to buy a pair of shoes. Okay. So you're on Instagram or TikTok or something and you see the ad for shoes, but you don't do anything. And you might see it 5 times and you might get something in your inbox, but you're on the train. And so, you see it, but you don't act on it. And you might need to see that several times to and think about it a little bit. And then it has to also be the right time and place for you to act. So those touches are impossible. They're nearly impossible to measure. I mean, if you've got tracking set up, there's a certain amount you can get, but it's pretty hard. So we call that the dark funnel, and there's always that consideration. And so it's really hard to say like which of those things got someone's attention and led them to finally click the button. And there's a lot of it's to chance because like I said, you might be like gonna buy the shoes and then your kid starts crying and you do something else and you forget, you know? Um, then there's once somebody gets in the funnel. And I'm mostly B2B, not B2C, but the shoes are an easy example. So they fill out a lead form. They raise their hand. They go to an event, something where they get into your CRM. Um, there's going to be, especially in a complex buying journey, there's not only a lot of touches per person, but there's a whole buying committee. If you're going to buy a $200,000 piece of software, it's you, it's your boss, it's everybody on your team, it's your CFO. There's, probably 8 to 10 people that are involved in this decision at minimum. And they are all part of who marketing needs to get to. So in order to really measure all of that impact, you need to know all the people that are involved. And you don't always know all the people that are involved because there might be some people at the company that are consuming your content that you don't even know about. You need to be able to tie all of those back to the sale or at least the opportunity. And that's right now the way Salesforce is designed. It's a manual process. The salesperson has to go in and manually attach each name to the opportunity, and salespeople don't do that. It's not what they're paid to do. They're paid to just close deals, not do the bookkeeping. And you have to be able to, so first of all, to know where all those touches are is hard. Once you know where all those touches are, you need an algorithm that weights them to say, okay, oh, well, you're the decision maker. Your decision is more important than the person sitting next to you who just is looking over your shoulder saying, that's cool, but they still had an impact on it, right? So there's got to be some weighting to all of those things. And then you have to think about the weight of the touches themselves. Is an ad impression as strong as somebody who comes to a session, like a meetup and talks to you in person? Probably not. So what you're trying to do is find an algorithm that understands companies' decision-making processes. And that would be fine if they all worked the same, but they don't. So it's not an easy problem to solve. And Salesforce could do a lot of things that tracked it a little better, that could make a tool that connected to Salesforce work better. In the meantime, what you have going on if you don't solve that problem is that the marketing team is saying, okay, we're going to all these events, say events. Events are expensive. We're going to spend $1 million on events this year. And your CFO is saying, I want to see how many people you met at the event that turned into a deal. And if 0 of those people turned into a deal, there's no ROI there. What we know is a lot of the people that you meet at events you already know. And we also know that events tend to be really good for deal acceleration, as in there's already an opportunity here, it's been lagging, then you have that FaceTime and bam, it starts going again. And so that, those kinds of things that happen in the middle of the funnel don't always show up in your first and last touch. And so your CFO says that's not worth anything. And you're saying, but I know it is. So that's what we're trying to solve.
It is just the struggle of the entire marketing department. So, Amy, these are really, really, really amazing insights. Thank you so much for sharing them with me. I had a question. So, regarding this attribution modeling, a few people say that there are better alternatives than attribution modeling. It's like, you know, proving the value for a marketing system that you haven't even implemented yet. What would you like to comment on this?
Are you asking what's the best attribution model to use?
Yes. Yes.
I don't have a strong opinion on that. I tend to like U and W shaped. I think custom models are probably academically the best if you actually have good data and you kind of know what's the best weighting. But it's there are pros and cons to every one. It probably depends on the company's business model. And really the best one is the one that you can get your sales team and your CFO behind, because if they don't trust it, it's not going to be worth anything. So the best one is really going to be if you can get everyone in a room to agree that we're all going to go in one direction and trust it. As weird as that sounds, because that's where the fight is.
I 100% agree. That's exactly where the fight is, you know. Obviously, uh, coming from a marketing leader like you, that actually just solidifies this point. So, Amy, I had a question about, campaign success. There are different definitions of a campaign success. How would you consider a campaign to be successful within marketing?
It, within Marketo, well, it depends on what your goal for the campaign is. Um, is it an awareness campaign? Is it an email campaign? Is it demand gen? Are you trying to get opportunities? I mean, you need to set your goals. Marketo is just the tool. The success has, and Marketo can make a campaign unsuccessful if you don't track things correctly or if you set it up poorly and you don't, you make a mess. But you just have to have clearly defined goals at the beginning and be willing to be flexible with your goals if you start learning that, well, this campaign isn't doing great with demand gen, but it is really doing great with awareness, and maybe that's okay.
I see. So basically, the definition of a campaign and what the what's supposed to do, it basically defines the success. So there's actually another very, hot topic that I've been trying to solve. There are a few models in Marketo. Obviously, you have worked directly with Marketo. You have worked over 20 years in the marketing landscape as a leader. No, you have worn so many hats. Which modules within B2B marketing, within B2B marketing automation, you think they will become obsolete as the time passes, and which modules will actually become more and more relevant in the coming age?
Oh, what marketing models are going to be obsolete?
Yeah, I mean, if you can answer relevant to Marketo, that's fine, but in general, if you can
Thing.
comment on, yes.
I mean, it's I think I think I'm going to take that in a slightly different direction. I think that there's a few things that everyone's talking about and nobody's doing well. And I don't know if they're going to become obsolete or if they're going to get figured out or if people are just going to give up on them. And the two big ones are intent and ABM. And the reason for those is from an academic standpoint, they both make a lot of sense. Um, ABM takes a lot. It takes a lot of orchestration across your organization. It takes a lot of work. And I don't mean ABM. Most people call it segmenting ABM. I mean like true tier one ABM. It's expensive. It's expensive from a resource standpoint and a money standpoint. And it takes resources from your RevOps team, your sales team, your customer service team, and your marketing team. And I have I have seen ABM done well in a small campaign here and a small campaign there, but I have never, and I used to work at Demand Base before, like when they were starting ABM. I have never seen true ABM as a sales, as a go-to-market discipline executed well. Um, people just talk and talk and talk about it. I've seen pieces of it done right. Uh, in terms of intent, I think intent also theoretically makes a lot of sense. And there's 7 million tools out there that are selling you intent data right now. But data is only good if it's actionable, and you need people that have the time to look at that data, integrate it into your other tools, build it into your lead scoring, and know what to do with it. And people get intent tools and they just, first of all, they don't understand it. They don't have the people and resources to do anything about it. They don't integrate it into their other tools. And so now what do you do? And so the best I've seen it used is someone's pulling a report and sending the sales team like, oh, these 5 accounts did something this week, which is useful, but it's just nowhere near powering the harness of what intent can do. And so I don't see I don't see organizations being willing to invest in the people and resources enough to really make use of it for a while. And we're especially in a situation where there have been a lot of layoffs. And so there's a lot of, I mean, Gartner says that only 30% of tools are being used, of the tool capability, of MarTech stack capability. And there's been all these layoffs and people have this whole stack and not enough people to use them right. And so I think that's another one that I don't know if it'll become obsolete, but I see unless people figure out how to harness they're just going to stop investing in it.
Quite insightful. I understand your time. I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask just to one more question.
Sure.
Thank you. So regarding data hygiene, what are some of the best practices? Like, what should you do to keep your data clean, specifically for a mid-market company which is still growing its contract size list?
We have 1 minute and that's like a 2-hour conversation. Data hygiene is a difficult problem to solve. Um, garbage in, garbage out, right? Um, the best thing is when you start off right. The problem and what happens is when companies start scaling, they do things fast and they get scrappy, and then they get big and now they've got a mess, and going back and fixing it is incredibly disruptive. Um, you need to have a dedicated RevOps and MOps team that stay on top of it. You also need to have a sales organization that is committed to using the CRM correctly. And you need to have a sales leader that will slap their team on the wrist if they're not using the CRM correctly. You know, you get those cowboys that just don't put anything in the CRM, but they're closing deals, and you need to have a sales leader that is committed to not allowing that to happen. Um, it's almost impossible to get it perfect. And you do need to do audits. You need to go through every now and then and pull all the junk out of your system. And, you know, there are increasingly good filters to do that. And I think AI is going to help with that a lot, with recognizing a whole bunch of shit that's in your system. Um, it's just hard when everybody's moving forward very quickly to go back and do things, like just pause forward movement to go backwards and fix things. And so if your company is not willing to stop and do that, you know, the mess just tends to snowball.
Thank you, Amy, for your time, for giving me so many amazing good insights. I request that you send the recording to me so that I can take notes. I can actively, learn more about this. And Amy, if you've got any questions for me, you can ask.
Sure, I do have to go, but this has been I'm so happy to help. I'll send you the recording and I'll shoot you my email address so you can send me. I can't wait to read the paper.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
By the
Very
way,
welcome.
yeah, so thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good. Yeah.